Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hub City Sports Feature podcast. I am your host, Charles Arnold, and I am joined by a very interesting guest today. I'm joined by Cody Byrd. He is a professional, or not professional, but he is a competitive arm wrestler. So, so first of all, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your background?
All right, well, I'm a student here at Southern Miss. I'm a computer science major, so nothing special. Everyone here's a computer science major. But I'm from south of Jackson. It's a little town called Byram. And I moved down here just for school, and I ended up finding arm wrestling because apparently it's kind of big around here, and I'd never heard of it. But I decided to stick around a few years, so here I am.
So first of all, how did you even hear about this arm wrestling scene that's apparently here in Hattiesburg?
Well, arm wrestling, I found the sport itself on YouTube because I spent a lot of time on YouTube because I'm a computer science major. And it seemed very interesting to me because it seemed like it was a sport that didn't require a lot of running, and I'm not a big fan of running. So I ended up just kind of looking on Facebook. I was just like, just wanting to get in the community in general, and I found out that there's actually a large community here of arm wrestlers, relatively speaking. The next closest hub of arm wrestling is probably New Orleans. So I just happened to land in the city to learn it. So I found a good group of people here. Actually, one of my coworkers is actually one of the guys I arm wrestle with. So that's how I found it out.
Oh, there you go. And could you explain a bit how that competitive arm wrestling is sort of laid out? Like, is it?
Yeah.
What's it all about?
So everyone grows up arm wrestling on like the school desk or the cafeteria, across from each other. Sometimes you'd hold their elbow so it doesn't move, and it's just kind of this motion. Well, you find out when you're two really strong people and you do it. I'm sure you might have seen it on YouTube. You get a lot of those arm breaks right here because people are just trying to rotate their arm. And basically what it is the bone right here literally just splinters apart because it takes like 7 pounds to do it. It doesn't take much. So what they did to make it a sport to avoid so many injuries is you have a 7-inch by 7-inch elbow pad that you're allowed to move around on. And the other person also has a pad, and there's a pin plane, there's 2 pads on the side that are another 2 inches taller. Basically anywhere below that plane, that's how you win. So you don't have to completely touch the tabletop. You get like right here, you lose, and you're able to move around. So it's not just strictly this. There's a lot of pulling. There's a lot of pushing. There's different techniques to it. There's even a strap arm wrestling when people can't hold each other's hand. There's too much strength. They just come apart.
And would you say that it was difficult at first getting used to having that pad there?
Arm wrestling on a table is completely different than arm wrestling on just a normal like tabletop, which you're used to. A lot of new guys, including myself, because I'm only a year and a half into it, you find yourself not moving at all. You watch you pull other people, and you're just stationary, and you're just doing this one motion, and the other guy's just moving everywhere. And when you watch enough people do it, you get tired of losing, so you kind of figure out how to pull right.
And is there certain, for lack of a better term, weight classes?
There are weight classes. So, for instance, if a guy's 6'3" and 300 pounds, I don't have to worry about him. He's not in my weight class. They have the most popular weight class is the super heavyweights because that's just the biggest of the biggest there are. From there, they split them like about every 20 to 30 pounds, depending on where you go in the country. Some of them the heavyweights start at 220, some of them at 230. Some of them are at 200. It just really depends on where you go. But there are weight classes. Weight class arm wrestling isn't as popular as it used to be just because people are just so much bigger now that are in the sport because more people have seen it. But, yeah, it's still a thing.
And where are you at on the weight class spectrum?
I fall in the 220-pound weight cap. So it's usually from about 199 to 220 I fall into. I'll pull in amateur classes because I'm just not that strong yet. And those classes tend to be a little bit wider, so they go to like 230 to 190, just because they don't want so many classes.
And when it comes to like preparing for something like this, you obviously probably have some sort of regiment that you have to be able to train for this. Can you talk a little bit about that regiment that you go through?
Yeah, I started out with, just as a new guy, I ended up with a lot of elbow pain because it's basically how people get a tennis elbow from swinging a racket a lot. you end up with the same pressure on the same tendons, and you get that same tendonitis right here. So I ended up, when I first started, I was doing like kind of like bodybuilding style. I was doing very high reps when in the gym, just curls and pull-ups and all that kind of stuff. Just because I was just so much pain, I couldn't do heavy stuff. But recently, the past probably 6-7 months, I've been following what's called a West Side Barbell system, and it's basically you have 4 different days of the week that I train. You have 2 different styles of each day, so you have two types of workouts, and they're in 2 different styles. So I have my pull day, which is normally like some type of curl or a row, something like that, and then I have push day, which is like a side pressure or push up, something like that. And I do a speed day, which involves like bands or chains or something that it requires acceleration to go. Whereas like if I just pick a 20-pound dumbbell up all the way up, it still weighs 20 pounds. But if I hook a chain to it, the more chain you pull up, the more chain you're holding, it gets heavier as you go. I use that for my speed days, and my other day is called max effort. You basically just pick a lift and you move as much weight on it as you can at one time, and it's maximal effort.
And you mentioned that, especially in the early stages, that you do get into that arm pain, that elbow pain. What was keeping you like on that grind, like wanting you to keep on pushing through that? Because a lot of people, they probably get discouraged and be like, maybe this isn't for me. Like, what motivated you to keep it up?
Well, a lot of my elbow pain was just from the fact that I kept losing. Because when you're pulling, like you're flexing as hard as you can, and someone can just open your arm like that, it's a lot of damage that happens to your tendons. So I figured, being the stupid person I was, if I could just get strong enough and not lose, it won't hurt so bad. And so far, it's working out for me. The stronger I get, the less it hurts. But definitely the more challenging it is, because people are closer to me in strength. I'm not so far behind them.
I gotcha. And within these groups that you're arm wrestling in, are there like championships that you can like aspire to win? Like, can you explain if there's a dynamic like that?
Yeah, so in amateur classes, it's not really like that, because you're just kind of trying to win the amateur class to work up to being in just the open class with everybody else. But we do have, there are trophies and medals you can win at different events. Our Mississippi's state championships actually happen at Brewski's every year at the bar right up the street from
nice.
there. And technically speaking, whoever wins their class is the Mississippi State Championship champion of that class until the next event, technically speaking. But they don't usually track it like that. It's usually just you have the trophy that says 2020 on it or 2022. There are other states, like I know Louisiana, their state championships, if you win a super heavyweight right hand, you have they call it a traveling belt. Basically, you take that home, and then you show up next year, and if somebody beats you, if they win the class, they get that belt.
Oh, nice.
It's not a different one every year.
Awesome. And do you have any experience arm wrestling in the other states? Because you mentioned the Louisiana scene. Do you have any experience wrestling in other states?
I've never been to an event outside of Mississippi, just because there's usually an entry fee, and I don't like paying to lose. So I like going up the street. It's a lot cheaper. But Louisiana they have open practices every weekend, and it's a ways from here, but it's not too bad. I have gone a couple times. Those guys over there they take it real serious over there. There's way more in Louisiana than there is over here, and they're all those guys who are they're 5'11", and they're just all muscle.
Yeah,
it's all those guys. You come to Mississippi, we're just a bunch of fat people.
Oh, man. And what would you say has been some of the more notable victories that you've had so far in your year-long career?
Well, I haven't had many victories to talk about, honestly. Actually, we just had a tournament at Hubfest at Coney Island Cafe. The guy that runs it is an arm wrestler. And that was my first time actually placing and getting a medal. I got a left hand second place in my class. It was 230 pounds. And I beat everyone except for one guy. There was 4 or 5 of us in the class. I beat everyone but one guy, and I was pretty excited about that. And then just today, actually, I had a super match, which is a one-on-one format. You do 5 rounds, best of 5 or best of 3, something of that format. And that was a left-hand match, and I won that one 3-1, so that was pretty notable to me. But that's pretty much all the victories I've had. I haven't had very many.
And you mentioned the arms and stuff. Do you favor your left arm, or do you also compete with your right arm as well?
I compete with both arms. Both of my arms are pretty equivalent in strength on most of my lifts. The left is like maybe 2 or 3 pounds off here or there. But my favorite technique is what's called a top roll, where you're mostly focusing on trying to bend the other person's wrist back. And if you can bend their wrist back, you're farther away from their elbow. You get more leverage as you go. And that usually works better left-handed for me because most people have a weaker left wrist. It's not that my left is stronger. It's just people have weaker lefts. So it works out for me.
And that does sort of bring me to my next question. You brought up that technique. Are there other techniques that you feel like people don't utilize, or maybe they're doing something incorrect? What would you say is some good advice on people that are wanting to get involved with arm wrestling competitively?
All right. So on an arm wrestling table, theoretically there's an infinite amount of ways the match could go between two people. You could go extremely inside, which is when you're pulling inside of your body as hard as you can. They call that a hook typically, is when both people bend their wrists like this, and you're kind of trying to, there's a peg you're holding on this side, and you're just kind of trying to drive this way. There's also outside arm wrestling, which is called a top roll or something like that. And it's usually when you're taking your hand and you're trying to bend their wrist back, but it usually ends up looking like you're pulling outside of your body. So they call it inside and outside, and there's limitless ways to pull in there. There are people who pull without wrist at all. Like they can just drive, you start here and they just let it go and they'll just press with their shoulder. There are people who, they do what's called a king's move or an open top roll. It's when some people, over years of arm wrestling, they develop arthritis in their elbow, and there's some people whose arms won't go past that, basically. There's actually a guy in Arkansas who's #1 in U.S. right now, and his arm stops right there. Like, that's it.
Wow.
And it's called a king's move because he just basically takes all his focus is on taking your hand. He'll give you the whole, almost to the winning side, but he's going to focus everything on this right here, and it's just almost impossible to pin him from there. And it's called a king's move just because the first guy who did it, his name was George, and they called him King George. But there's limitless ways to arm wrestle. There's no right way and there's no wrong way to arm wrestle.
I gotcha. And for people who perhaps want to get involved with this crazy Hattiesburg arm wrestling scene, where can they find tournaments or other local events like that?
The easiest way, I would say, to find events in the community is probably on Facebook. You can go to groups and you can type in the local group here is called Mississippi Arm Fighters. You can go on there and it's not super active, but most of us are in it. We'll see the post in it. There's also groups like Arm Wrestling Uncensored it's basically just a nationwide group. Everyone's in it. I myself and my coworker we have the most active group in the state. We call it the Shed Arm Wrestling because we started in a little shed. There was like 4 of us when we started. Now we're in a carport. We don't fit no more, but it's not super hard to find people around. You just have to know where to look. There's also an app it's on Android and iPhone. It's called ArmBet. Not a lot of people use it yet, but I think it'll be pretty popular in the future. It's kind of like you basically open it, make your profile, and it'll show you people on the map who also have the app. And not everyone has the app, so it's not going to show you everybody. But you'll see the people who have downloaded it, and you can message people, you can challenge them to matches, stuff like that.
Oh, so it's kind of like Tinder, but for arm wrestling.
Yeah, just no left and right swipes.
Yeah, it's more like left and right arms.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. But anyway, thank you so much for coming on. Do you have anything else that you'd like to say before I let you go?
No, I appreciate the interview, and I appreciate you putting some light on the sport that nobody's heard of.
Definitely, it's what I seek to do for this project. But and before I let you go, I do want to challenge you to an arm wrestling match. So, Cody,
we're doing it right over here.
Yes, if we can adjust the camera over here.
All right.
See if we can get a match, and you go ahead and do whatever you gotta do.
I'll get on this side. Can you still see me over here? Or is it too dark?
We got a light on the camera if we need to use it. Who knows? All right, so.
All right. I'm gonna keep you safe. I ain't gonna hurt you. All right.
All right, here we go. All right, Kobe, if you want to give us a countdown.
All right. This is not gonna go well. Well, okay. 3, 2, 1.
You've almost got me. You're real close. Pull it towards you. Roll me to your chest. Pull me in. There you go. Open my arm. There you go. Bend your wrist. There you go. I'll move you over now, alright? Come on. I can do it. I could just hold it until he gives up is what I could do.
Oh man, you're gonna play dirty like that? I could do it. This is going to be maybe more intense than I thought it would be. Oh my god.
I lost that one.
There you go. That was one of the most difficult matches that I've had. Oh, but man, seriously, thank you so much for coming on,
sir.
man. And,
I appreciate it.
And we thank you for tuning in. This has been Charles and Cody here for the Hub City Sports Feature Podcast. Peace out.